Good afternoon, everyone. Um, my name's Dave Roberts, and I am the Capital Projects Manager for Woodland Pond. And this is my weekly update to let you know what's going on with our project. And I obviously forgot to put my camera on in the right place, and that's why I was blank at first. So we had, of course, the big thing this week was our much anticipated planning board meeting. And it went very well. We were thanked for our very thorough presentation. Both Ken Casamento and myself presented, and I just essentially gave background to Woodland Pond, some context as to why we want to make the alterations and additions to the existing campus. And Ken really followed up with a more detailed sort of technical explanation. Of course, this was just in addition to the drawings that have already been presented to the board that they, we hope, have already looked at. And we got a few comments from them, but not a lot, because really we expect to get a lot more comments from the board after their consultants have reviewed the drawings, the presentation, and then they will issue comments to their board, and in turn, their board will ask us, those questions. They asked a couple things. I mean, one of the main things that comes up in these reviews is the seeker. You might have heard that phrase used from term to term, and it's an acronym for the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And what that act entails or tries to accomplish is to make sure that every project that comes together at a state and local level is equally examined for its environmental impacts and social and economic impacts. And so there's a long list of different categories that the lead agency has to go through and say whether there's an impact or not. What a project is looking for in that evaluation is what's called a neg dec, or a negative declaration. What that means is that there's a declaration that there's no impact or very little impact. And the first step is to determine who the lead agency is. And what that means is that within any project, you're going to have a number of authorities, agencies that have input or oversight or sign off on that project. For example, the DOT, the Department of Transport, may have impact. Obviously, the planning board does. Often the planning board or a town board becomes the lead agency. That's what's usual, but it requires the other agencies to say that they don't want to be the lead agency, because the only difference for us as a CCRC is the Department of Health has to sign off on the changes that we make, and so they will be notified by the planning board that this application is in place, and they will more than likely say that they don't want to be the lead agency and they're quite happy for the planning board to cover that role. So just to explain something that, a couple of things that you might have heard if you tuned into that public hearing, or you may hear as part of the conversation. So a few comments from the planning board, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that we're concerned about. And really in the next meeting is December 17th. And at that meeting, they will have some input from their consultants and have more questions for us. That's what we anticipate. We also anticipate that at that next meeting in December, they'll set what's called a public hearing. That's where the public can come in and give their comments. So that will probably be set for January. We hope that'll only be open for a month, but that'll be also another opportunity. Actually, the public hearing isn't really a back and forth. It's not a question and answer session. It's really a session where we listen to their comments, the planning board will respond to those or take those into consideration. So that's where we are with the planning board. And as I said, feel pretty confident about it. We gave a really good amount of documentation there. They have plenty to look at. They have pictures to show what the proposal looks like. And of course, all the plans and technical data to back that up as well. We, in the last week, excuse me, also been looking at quite a bit of the design detail. It's an ongoing process. Obviously, at the moment, we are more focused with the health center and wrapping that up, because the process with the health center is that we are doing our schematic design. Once that's complete, we will have our architects, that's AG Architecture, will prepare a schematic design. It's actually more than that, for pricing by Wilson, our construction manager. And that'll give us a good indication as to where we're at with the overall pricing. So the timetable for that looks like, in December, towards the end of December, we'll be looking at getting that pricing package out from AG, and then takes about 3 or 4 weeks. We've got the holidays in there, so it'll probably be the end of January when we're looking at getting pricing on the health center package. So that's that kind of timeline and where we're at. All these things, it's actually really cool, because the architects and the interior architects are populating their drawing set with details and so on as we go through the schematic process. So they're doing things in parallel rather than waiting for one thing to finish and then go on. And so they're very kind of efficient in that way. And I've been really impressed with that. Some of the things that we've been looking at, there's been more discussion about the country kitchens and between our food service team, the architects and the interior architects, and Atlantic, our food service consultant, figuring out, once again, with our improved program, how to best provide the best food to everyone in the health center, and what that means in terms of equipment, where the food is going to be finished off, and doing that in the best possible way. So, there's always back and forth there, but I feel like after the last meeting, we're refining it. And, as I say, we're kind of in the closing stages of figuring this out. I also met with a representative from Sawyer Savings Bank to kind of walk through that process of their moving their bank from, one part. It's not going to be far from where it is at the moment. It actually moves a little closer to the entrance to Woodland Pond. And they're very happy. They're great to work with. They see us as a really, great client. So that's a pretty seamless, or so far has been pretty seamless interaction with them. And I expect it to be that way moving forward. This week, we also got, some sketches from the landscape architects. And I just wanted to walk through some of those with you, because I once again, kind of gives you a little insight into the process here, which I think is really interesting. It's not like they just come up with a design and we go with it. So these are things that we'll actually be going through with the various committees. But we just received them this week, and I wanted to share, some of their thoughts with you. So you'll see here that this first drawing is so this is the new wellness fitness edition. And of course, because of that new build, we're having to relocate the community garden. And that's what's happening here. And so this is we got feedback from our community gardeners saying that they really wanted to see a more flexible and less formal layout. They wanted to be able to access garden beds from each side, from all sides, have some flexibility. in the size of garden beds and flexibility in the heights as well. And so what you see is, it's informal and can be added to or taken away from over time. It's essentially garden beds on, like a permeable sort of stone surface for easy access and easy walking and so on. And one of the things that we talked about was the need for a potting shed and places to sit. And you'll see, I think this is an interesting development because rather than putting that potting shed or, where the equipment and so on is stored, rather than tucking that away in the corner, they're saying, oh, this is an opportunity for something to kind of organize the space around. And so, you might have a bench there, a bench over here as well. And so that potting shed kind of becomes more of a feature of that area. Once again, you're seeing this option 2. It's a more sort of linear layout of the beds rather than being irregular. But you see that potting shed is still kind of a central feature. And then there's a third option where the potting shed really goes in the middle of the space and you start to organize the beds around that. So, 3 sort of interesting schemes to consider. And I think whatever scheme we end up going with, I'm really excited about these designs. They just did a little study to compare the number of beds in the proposal compared to what's existing. They also have some ideas for potting sheds, which I think are really cool. You can kind of imagine that it could be a little structure that could also, obviously house a lot of equipment. And then they're talking about water spigots and, possibly using a more traditional design there as well. When we look at this is skilled nursing garden. So this would be up here at the top of the page. Well, here, I'll just expand this. You can see this would be the access point. So there's a flat area here for chairs and tables to sit out with guests or family. And then this linear path, it just provides a way to somewhere to walk a little bit. You'll see there's a buffer of vegetation here, which buffers the existing apartments from where people might be walking or sitting. And so lots of, nice garden area here as well. The retaining wall and a nice place to sit out. They've marked another possible sitting area here. Then you get down to another option where they call this adventure path, where there's a lot more walkways to sit in the little pond. So probably, like I say, maybe less sitting areas, but more walking areas in this scheme. And then this is kind of a combination of both. So you can see how the landscape architect, Henry, is really kind of working through his ideas here, presenting different concepts just so that he can get a response from the residents and from us as to what we think is most practical and what is going to serve our community the best of all. Couple of ideas about screening. We talked about the need for screening between memory care, just because, sometimes the residents in memory care, when they see something outside, it can be confusing to them. They see activity outside their area, they may be drawn to it, and then they have some frustration about not being able to get there. So we're looking at, different ways of screening the memory care garden from the skilled nursing, assisted living garden. And so these are just some ideas that Henry has put forward. Not things that we've discussed yet, but, certainly interesting ideas. And then he also has this assisted living garden, and you'll see, there's sort of a relationship between this and what we were looking at just before, where, you have somewhere where you can walk but then a destination where you can sit, maybe in a group or just, but it still feels intimate if there's just one or two people sitting out there. You can feel like you're, in a sort of intimate, enclosed space, even though you're outside. And one of the things that he's addressing here is the fact that these spaces are overlooked by the apartments. And so if you're out there, you want to kind of feel like you're still in a secure, safe place rather than being out at an open spot where everyone's sort of looking out on you. So that's why he's creating these smaller sitting spaces, which I think is really interesting. And then this one he calls a pocket seating. So there's these tiny little areas here with stone walls around them. Once again, feeling of protection when you're sitting out there, but still, with a view into the landscape. And this one has a central sort of birch grove. So you can imagine like sitting, in one of these places and looking through the trunks of those birch trees. And then the fourth option here was more formal. You can kind of imagine what this might be, with a lot of white birch trees, and then birch trees planted in a regular pattern with the sitting benches in between. So quite different in their intention and character, but all with lovely ideas about how to be outside, enjoy the outside in a really comfortable and environment. So looking forward to getting people's response to those, and especially our gardening and our resident committees. So yeah, a few ideas there. Lots this week. I'm not going to be giving a address next week, so we'll miss that. If I don't see you walking around, I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And please, as always, love to hear your comments. Always, it's a pleasure to hear residents' input, and I encourage you to keep that coming. All right, have a great Thanksgiving and a weekend, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.